Welcome to Pharma Drama, the channel where we look at the science of healthcare and healthcare products. It's exam time, and exam time is very stressful, especially if the exam is open book. And by open book, I mean you've got access to your revision notes. In the last 2 years, I have marked hundreds of exam papers from open book exams, and I have seen numerous students make the same mistake. So in this video, I'm going to tell you what that mistake is and how to avoid it, so you get the best score that you can. So, if that sounds good, get yourself a drink and let's make a start. Before I tell you what the mistake is that students make, I need to talk a little bit about how you revise in the first place. In my experience, students tend to revise in groups, which is excellent. I can't tell you how heartwarming it is as an academic to know that groups of students are sitting downstairs at my university talking about the subjects I've been teaching them. That's good, keep doing it. Where it becomes tricky is when students talk about subjects and make common revision notes. And by common revision notes, I mean maybe having a Google document that everyone has access to, or maybe someone is writing on a board what your view of a particular topic is, and everybody is writing down a set of revision notes. I'm aware of some instances where someone leading a revision session is writing on the board a set of words. Those words are being agreed by all the students in the room, and all the students are writing them down. It's really tempting to think that in writing down the revision notes, you're making a document which is unique to you. But the problem is, everybody else in the room is writing down more or less the same thing. And so you have a situation where multiple students have got essentially the same revision notes. Now, that in itself is not too much of a problem. But the big mistake that students make when doing an open book exam is, drum roll please, looking at the exam paper, thinking to themselves, okay, this question comes from that lecture, this question comes from that lecture. So the way that they start to answer the question is they go to their revision notes, cut and paste the section from that particular lecture into a Word document, and that's the basis of their answer. Then what they'll do is use the rest of the time in the exam to change some of the words maybe in that document, or maybe they will think to themselves, okay, it doesn't quite answer the question, so I need to add, remove even some text to try and make it address the question that I'm being asked. So there are a number of things wrong with that strategy. The first one is, in an open book exam, as academics, we never ask questions that can be answered by simply cutting and pasting text. The reason is because it's not a test of your knowledge. The idea of an exam is that you get to demonstrate how you're applying the knowledge that we've given you during the lectures to a particular problem. So, we might ask you to look at a situation and interpret it. It might be a case study from someone that's got some symptoms. It might be some data from an instrument that we're asking you to understand or analyze. It might even be an opinion. We might ask you for your opinion on something. It doesn't really matter what it is. The bottom line is all the sorts of questions that we're going to ask you are going to involve interpretation or an opinion. And you can't get an interpretation or an opinion from your lecture notes or from Google. You can't type into Google, what is my opinion on aspirin as a medicine? You have to have a view on it yourself, and it's your view that we want written down. So I hope you can see right from the start, it is difficult to cut and paste your opinion on something. So if you're cutting and pasting text and you're not changing it in some way to give an opinion, right there you've set yourself up for failure. But more importantly, people forget that the other students in the class have got essentially the same revision notes as you have. So If you started your answer by cutting and pasting text from your own revision notes, it's really easy to forget someone else is going to be doing the same thing. And because the revision notes have come from the same source, they are pretty much identical. I've seen situations where a set of revision notes between students are the same to the point where they have the same spelling mistakes in. If you then cut and paste those answers into a document, which is your exam answer, it's going to have the same spelling mistakes in. As academics, when we read a number of answers and we compare them and they've got the same spelling mistakes in, it's very difficult for you as a student group because it looks like there's been a degree of collusion during the exam. Collusion means you've been talking to one or more other people sitting the exam at the same time. So if we see that, common spelling mistakes, for instance, between answers, the chances are you're going to be summoned to a hearing to explain yourself because the university is going to think you're guilty of colluding during the exam. So that's very bad. So it's really easy to forget other students have got the same revision notes as you have. And if you start answering your question directly from your revision notes, the chances are another student is going to do exactly the same thing. So please, please, please do this when answering an exam question. Start with a blank sheet of paper, look at the exam question, think to yourself, okay, imagine that I'm in a place of work and someone's asked me this question, how would I answer? If someone came into a pharmacy that you're working and they said, oh, I'm a bit worried about what aspirin might do in the body, you're not going to say to them, okay, let me just get my lecture notes on aspirin, cut and paste them and give them to them and say, there you go. No, you're going to think to yourself, okay, I remember a little bit about aspirin. Maybe you would go and look up the properties of aspirin. It doesn't really matter. But then you talk to that person saying, well, this is what aspirin is. These are its properties, and just talk through it. Do the same thing in an exam. Start with a blank sheet of paper, look at the question, and then start writing. Don't cut and paste anything, just start writing. When we set exam questions as academics, we have to prepare model answers, and our model answers we write from scratch, and we write them in the same time period as we think you have in the exam. So for argument's sake, let's say, if you've calculated it, you should have 10 minutes to write an answer to a question. When we set our model answer, we also start writing, and if we think you can write that in 10 minutes, that's all you need to do. You don't need to copy pages and pages of text into your answer. You just need to start from scratch and start writing. I guarantee you that if you start writing your own answer from scratch, it will never be the same as someone else's, point number one. And point number two, it's much more likely to answer the actual question. So, do not make this super big mistake of copying your lecture notes as your exam answer, because I almost guarantee someone else will have done the same thing and you'll be at an academic misconduct hearing trying to justify why you weren't colluding with someone. Just write your answer from scratch. Right, I hope that helps, and when you sit your exam, you do exactly what I said and answer your question from memory as a blank sheet of paper. If that helped, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. It really helps the channel. Maybe if you want to give all of your peers a competitive advantage, you can get them to watch this video as well. Otherwise, good luck with your exam, and I'll see you again soon.